In today's video, you'll learn something that can really help you. So like it and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Let's get started.
There was blood on the snow. Alexei saw it even before he understood what he was looking at. A red stain spreading across the immaculate white, too wide to be from a small animal. He took 2 more steps and then stopped because what was in front of him made no sense at all. A woman, lying face down in the middle of the forest, and less than a meter from her, a she-wolf, large, dark, with her muzzle lowered, looking directly at him with eyes that did not ask for help. They demanded. Alexei Voronov was 41 years old and had spent his entire life in those forests north of Krasnoyarsk. He had seen bears, had faced blizzards with temperatures of minus 40 degrees, had slept alone on the ice more than once. But never, at any moment in his life, had he come across a scene like that. The woman was breathing. He could see the vapor coming out her mouth in small, weak puffs. She was alive, but for how long it was impossible to say. The temperature was already at minus 32 degrees, and the sun, what was left of it, was quickly disappearing behind the trees. Alexei crouched down slowly, his eyes fixed on the she-wolf. The animal did not retreat. It did not growl. It only watched, and it was only then that he realized the she-wolf was also injured. One of her front paws bent the wrong way, and there was a dark line of frozen blood along her left flank. 2 fallen beings, 1 man alone, in a forest that does not forgive hesitation. He did not know the woman's name. He did not know what she was doing there, kilometers from any road, without equipment, without proper winter clothing, with her fingers beginning to develop gangrene. He did not know where the she-wolf had come from, nor what had happened to her. There were too many questions hanging in the frozen air, and none of them could be answered at that moment. What Alexei knew was simple. If he did not act now, neither of them would survive the night. He took the backpack off his shoulders, opened the zipper with fingers already numb, and began to work. Without haste, without panic, with that calm that only comes from someone who has already looked death in the face and learned that despair saves no one. But as he wrapped the woman in the thermal blanket, something made him stop. A small detail, almost imperceptible, that he could not ignore. And that would change everything he thought he knew about that night. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments what you think, and which city or country you're watching from. It was a mark on the woman's neck. It was not a scratch from a branch, nor an injury from a fall. It was too precise for that. 3 parallel, thin cuts, made with something sharp and with clear intention. Alexei stood still for a few seconds with the blanket in his hand, staring at that mark without being able to look away. Then he took a deep breath and continued working in silence. There would be time for questions. Now was definitely not the moment. He lifted the woman carefully, surprised by how little she weighed. Her body was stiff from the cold, her lips completely purple, her eyebrows covered in crystals of ice. She murmured something when he moved her, a word, perhaps a name, but the sound came out so faint that it was immediately lost in the wind. The she-wolf did not attack. She remained exactly where she was, her eyes following his every movement with an attention that seemed almost rational. When Alexei began walking toward the cabin, the animal got up with difficulty and followed him, limping, her injured paw barely touching the ground. Neither of them chose to trust the other. There was simply no other option. Alexei's cabin was a little over 2 kilometers from there, a small, dark wooden structure built by his father decades earlier. No electricity, no cell signal, nothing beyond the basics. But there was a fireplace, there was dry firewood stacked outside, and there was an old radio that on good days could reach the nearest forest ranger station. Alexei walked fast, the woman in his arms, and the she-wolf dragging her steps behind him. The wind hit head-on, cutting the exposed skin of his face, but he did not stop even once. To stop meant losing heat. Losing heat meant not making it. When he finally pushed the cabin door open with his shoulder and felt the still, cold air inside, it was almost a relief. He laid the woman on the wooden cot, covered her with what he had available, and turned to light the fireplace. The she-wolf entered on her own. She lay down near the door, licked her injured paw once, and closed her eyes. Alexei looked at that scene. The unconscious woman, the exhausted animal, the darkness outside. And for the first time since he had gone out for a walk that afternoon, he felt the real weight of what was happening. Something about that situation was not an accident. Someone had put those two there. Night fell completely, and the silence outside was absolute. Alexei fed the fireplace with thick logs, boiled snow water in a dented pot, and tried to make the woman swallow a few lukewarm sips with patience. She obeyed without opening her eyes, her body acting on pure instinct, still fighting to survive even without consciousness to guide it. That, at least, was a good sign among so many uncertainties. The she-wolf slept leaning against the wall. Her breathing was short, irregular, but steady. That was when the woman opened her eyes for the first time. She said nothing. She only looked at the dark wooden ceiling for a few seconds, then at Alexei, then at the she-wolf, and closed her eyes again. No surprise, no scream, as if waking up in an unfamiliar cabin, beside a strange man and an injured wolf, was something completely expected for her. That reaction unsettled Alexei more than anything he had seen that night. He stayed awake through the night, feeding the fire every hour and watching over his two patients. He treated the she-wolf's paw with what he had: disinfectant, a makeshift bandage made from clean cloth, a splint fashioned from two small sticks tied with string. The animal allowed it without reacting, only lowering her muzzle over her front paws and sighing deeply, as if she knew it was necessary. It was nearly 4 a.m. when the woman woke up again. This time, she stayed awake. She said her name was Vera. She said she was 29 years old and that she came from a city 300 kilometers away. But when Alexei asked what she was doing alone in that forest, in the middle of a stormy night, she looked away toward the fireplace and remained silent for a stretch too long to be ordinary discomfort. "I needed to leave," she finally said. Quickly. Alexei did not press. He knew that kind of answer. It was the answer of someone who was running from something, not lost by accident. The mark on her neck came back to his mind, and he felt his stomach tighten. In the morning, with the gray light of the Siberian dawn filtering through the cracks in the wood, he finally managed to activate the radio. The voice of the forest ranger from the station came through heavy with static, but it came through.
I have my opinion on this story, but I want to know yours. Leave a comment telling us what you think, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this conversation in future videos. Where are you watching from? I want to see who lives the furthest away.
Alexei requested medical assistance and gave the coordinates. What he did not say was Vera's name. He did not yet know if he should. The man who arrived with the medical team was not a forest ranger. Alexei realized that even before he got off the snowmobile, the posture was wrong. The coat was far too expensive, and the eyes scanned the cabin with a speed that had nothing to do with concern for the injured. It was an active, precise search. Vera was sitting on the cot when she heard the engine outside. In less than a second, the color completely drained from her face. "He can't see me," she said softly, with an urgency that needed no explanation. Alexei asked no questions. He opened the storage room door at the back of the cabin and made a quick gesture with his head. Vera went in without hesitation. The she-wolf, as if she understood, stood up and followed her. He closed the door and went to receive the visitors with the most neutral expression he could manage. The man introduced himself as Dmitri. He said he was a family associate of Vera's and that he had been alerted by radio. He smiled the entire time, a smile that never reached his eyes. He asked about the woman with a calmness that was, in fact, a well-dressed threat. Alexei said there was no woman, that he had found only the injured she-wolf and had called for help as a matter of protocol. The medical team exchanged glances, but no one contradicted him. Dmitri stood in the middle of the cabin for a moment, looking around with that calculated attention. His gaze stopped on the storage room door for 2 seconds longer than it should have. Alexei did not move. "If you find her," Dmitri finally said, placing a card on the table, "call. There is a generous reward for anyone who helps the family reunite with her." He left without waiting for a response. Alexei waited until the sound of the snowmobiles had completely faded before opening the storage room. Vera was standing with her back against the wall and her fists clenched. The she-wolf was in front of her, on all fours, staring at the door, ready for anything. "Who is he?" Alexei asked. Vera took her time. She drew a deep breath once, then again. "My husband sent him," she said, "and if he finds me, I'm not going back." 3 simple words. But the way she said it, without drama, without tears, with that cold certainty of someone who has already accepted a horrible reality, was what finally made Alexei understand the true size of the problem he had just gotten himself into. Alexei spent the next 3 days doing what he knew how to do best, acting without drawing attention. He managed to contact a social worker he had known years earlier, a discreet woman who worked with relocating people in situations of risk. He gave no details over the radio. He only said that there was someone needing a safe exit, and that time was short. She understood without needing more. In the meantime, Vera slowly regained her strength. She ate little, spoke even less, but helped with whatever she could: firewood, water, food. There was a quiet dignity in her that Alexei respected without naming it. The she-wolf improved each day. The paw still hurt, but she was already putting weight on it, already walking, already sniffing at the door with curiosity instead of alarm. On the morning of the 4th day, the transport was arranged. Alexei explained the plan in few words. Vera listened without interrupting, then remained silent for a moment, looking at the she-wolf lying near the fireplace. "Will she be okay?" Vera asked, not about herself, about the animal. "She will," Alexei replied. "She's stronger than she looks." Vera nodded slowly, as if the answer applied to both of them. When the vehicle arrived and she left, there was no long embrace or speech, just a look, the kind that says everything words cannot reach. Alexei stood at the cabin door watching until the snow swallowed the car. Then he went inside, sat in the wooden chair near the fire, and remained quiet for a long time. The she-wolf stayed beside him. She pressed her muzzle against his hand once, just once, and stayed that way. 2 weeks later, Alexei opened the door early in the morning, and the she-wolf left for the forest. No drama, no hesitation. It was what was meant to happen, and they both knew it. But she came back. Not that day, not the following week, but she came back. She would appear at the edge of the woods from time to time, stay for a moment, and disappear again, as if she needed to check that he was still there, or perhaps to remember that some connections do not ask permission to exist. They simply persist, silent and real, like the snow that covers everything but erases nothing. If this story touched you in some way, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. It makes all the difference.